Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. Really excited to have all of you here. Hope you're in the right place. We're talking about GIS as the foundation of asset management. It's part of ConnectMe's asset management asset mapping events called GIS at the Center, Spatially Intelligent Asset Management Ecosystem, and it's a series. My name's Jennifer Perkins. I am the Government Solutions Specialist with Brightly Software. We are a Siemens company, and I'll be here moderating the event today. Before we get started, however, I'd love to see who's here and where you're from, what industries and sectors you work with. So if you wouldn't mind filling in the poll that's just popped up on your screen, just answer and hit submit. We'll look at the answers in a minute. Also, we'd like to have an interactive event today, so please put questions into the Q&A space at the bottom of your navigation bar on your screen or in the chat box. You don't need to raise your hand. Just post all those questions and we'll respond as we go along, as well as at the end of the presentation in a discussion session. So also, we do have a couple of other polls that are going to be showing up, so please participate in those as they come up. It will help kind of guide the discussion and let us know some more about you. For information about the speakers and for the event agenda, just click the resources tab at the bottom of your screen. It could be right next to the three dots that says more. We've shared some links in the resources that you can access at any time. There is a copy of the slides that are in there if anybody's interested in seeing those. In addition, the session is going to be recorded and will be available for download on demand after the event. Within the first couple of days after the event, the email will be sent to you where that recording is available. And this educational opportunity is being made possible by us, Brightly Software. As I mentioned, we are a Siemens company. We do asset management software solutions for four major sectors. I work in government, but we do also have sectors in healthcare, in manufacturing, and in education. So today, in addition to myself, Mike Murphy is here. We're really excited to have him on our team. He's in charge of the Brightly Software Location Intelligence Program. His title is Technical Program and Product Management, but he's basically our GIS guru. And so we're really excited to be having him today talking to you about the tie between GIS and asset management, government as a whole. It's going to be a conversation, as you could probably tell already, very conversational. That's how I love to do these things. So we welcome you to join in, as I said, through the chat. This is the opening of this four-part series, so really excited that you're here for the first one. Hope that you'll join us for the others as well. We are going to talk about delve in deeper. This is the sort of intro session, and then followed by the next two sessions will be focused, one on indoor and one on outdoor GIS, and then finally sort of the vision of the future, or where GIS and asset management are going together. So time for the poll results. Hopefully you had a chance to fill those out, and let's just take a look at them. So lots of people from local government. That's excellent. A good amount from state government as well. Thank you. Welcome. That's excellent. Academia, we welcome you as well. We do a lot of work, and a lot of the things that we do in government includes academia, whether it's higher ed or K through 12. And then some people in industry. Again, we borrow things that are done in private industry all the time. So that's great to have you here and participating. And then some of you that are other. All mostly in the United States, but we do welcome our European and African participants. So welcome to our webinar. It will be very much sort of US centric, but please, like I said, participate and add questions as you will, and we'll try to answer those as we can. Quite a few of you from transportation, love that. We do a lot with transportation. Transportation is a really critical role, and GIS helps enormously with that. And then also land planning and public works and utilities. So we work in all of those areas, and as the former CIO and longtime employee at the city of Boston, worked in all of those areas and had GIS as an integral piece of all of that. I am interested. We have one person who identifies from sustainability, so welcome. That's really picking up GIS and sustainability and the intersection of those things. So excited to have you here. And then the people that are from other. So lots of different municipality sizes that are all here. So that's excellent. I think large cities and counties can learn and state entities can learn from smaller places where they're doing things and the reverse as well. So that's really awesome. And again, participation will help us learn from each other. So let me invite Mike onto the screen and into the webinar, and we'll kick this off. Hi, good morning, Mike.
Hi, good morning. Thanks, Jen, for the introduction. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining today's session. GIS is the foundation of asset management. I'm super excited to be here presenting to you all. I just want to call out, rest assured, this is the most people who have ever voluntarily come to hear me speak about GIS. That makes me very excited, and we're going to have a lot of fun today as we talk through this stuff. I'm just waiting for my screen share to come up. There we go. So, today's discussion is centered on a simple but important idea, right? So GIS should not sit on the sidelines of asset management. GIS should serve as the center, the framework, the hub that connects assets, systems, workflows, and decisions. In this series, we're going to explore how GIS can connect asset registries, work order data, building systems, lifecycle planning, risk analysis, facility condition information, and Internet of Things feeds into a unified operational view that is transformative. It's going to transform GIS from a service provider to a strategic partner. We're going to examine why GIS isn't just a visualization layer, but rather is the connective tissue that makes asset data meaningful, actionable, and defensible. We're going to discuss the integration opportunities, and we're going to walk through use cases that demonstrate the transformative power of spatially intelligent asset management. But before we dive into all of that, I'd like to share a little bit about my background and why this topic matters to me. I've spent over 2 decades working in the intersection of geospatial data, technology, and practical problem solving. And that journey has shaped my understanding of what GIS can truly accomplish when it's positioned correctly. My experience has consistently centered on one theme: using GIS not just to store or display data, but to improve data quality, enable operational workflows, and support better decision making. I spent a few years outside of GIS. I worked in algorithm and hardware development of wearable medical devices, and I was also the senior program manager of data and analytics for the world's largest fitness brand. All of this experience has given me a deep appreciation for the power of data, and spatial data in particular, not just as a product, but as a strategic asset that connects systems, informs decisions, and drives operational excellence. And that brings us to today's topic. Organizations at all levels, public, private, government, business, service providers, we're all facing unprecedented challenges. Aging infrastructure is failing. Pipes installed decades ago are reaching end of life. That leads to water main breaks, service disruptions, and more importantly, public safety concerns. Buildings require complex indoor wayfinding to enable emergency response coordination, accessibility compliance, and facility operations management. Transportation networks demand constant maintenance with shrinking budgets. Roads, bridges, sidewalks, traffic signals, all increasing maintenance needs, decreasing available resources. Capital planning cycles are contentious. Leaders demand proof of value. The public expects transparency on taxpayer spending, and decisions require data-driven justification. The workforce crisis compounds everything, and I'm sure you've all been experiencing this, as we all have. Experienced public works staff are retiring, and with them, they're taking decades of institutional knowledge. That creates knowledge gaps that are difficult to fill. New hires struggle with critical tasks like locating assets in the field, understanding the maintenance histories of these assets, and prioritizing work effectively to make sure the right people are working on the right things at the right time. Citizens and stakeholders expect modern service delivery. They expect transparency in government operations. They expect rapid response times, and they expect digital services comparable to the private sector. So where
So,
does that take us?
Mike,
Oh, go
just
ahead,
one sec,
Jennifer.
Mike, because you said something super interesting to me, and I wonder if there's people in the audience that feel the same way. I've spent a lot of time in municipal and state government, and I've never seen a time where more people have been retiring or it's been as difficult to recruit people coming in. I wonder if we could
For sure.
pop up a quick poll and just see how many of you out in the audience are struggling with that. Having had people leave, your sort of critical employees that are leaving, retiring, if that's actually the case. It seems to me that it is. And as I work with the local governments, I had one person tell me that they can see for the next 5 years that they have two senior staff that are going to retire every single year, which is really frightening. Um, so I'm interested in what you all have to say. If you wouldn't mind filling out the quick poll that popped up, and then maybe we can look at the answers once you've all answered.
Sure, while we wait for folks to fill out that survey. Oh, we've got the results. Here we go.
You know what? I feel so vindicated. Yes, everyone is feeling that. So, I mean, that's one of those pieces that feels difficult and is also an opportunity. And I think one of those really important items to take away from today is GIS can be helpful in the creation of institutional knowledge, like Mike's going to talk about, so that those people that are leaving get to leave some of their information behind. And many of you are probably already doing that. We find all the time as we talk to customers, there's fear that they're going to lose some of that institutional knowledge. So hopefully GIS can provide some features and help in that way going forward. Sorry, Mike, didn't want to interrupt you, but that was super interesting question.
Yeah, no, and it reminds me of an anecdote, Jen, that actually you shared with me of the maintenance technician who every day for 30 years on the way into the office stopped off at a site and flipped a switch on a piece of machinery just to ensure that it kept running. And he did not share that information with anyone. And when he retired, the very first day of his retirement, that system failed, and they had to call him up on the phone and beg for his help in his first day of retirement. But he was candid about it, and he said, "Oh, I guess I forgot to tell everyone that small detail." So it is incredibly important to preserve that institutional knowledge that can just walk out when people retire. So that, along with all of the other items that I called out there in the introduction, bring us to the core problem here, right? And we can sum it up in one sentence: critical asset data is fragmented and disconnected. And that really just sums it up, right? And we're going to jump into why that is. So, as I'm sure you've all experienced, and it's not unique to any one industry or organization, multiple sources of truth. We have data silos across multiple systems. We have assets living in one system. We have building floor plans that exist as static PDFs. We have work orders that sit in a CMMS. We have GIS, which holds spatial data. We have capital improvement plans, which live in spreadsheets. So no single source of truth exists for those. Systems don't communicate with each other. Data is duplicated across environments and becomes inconsistent. Updates don't propagate across platforms. That makes decision makers, puts them in a tough spot, right? They lack critical visibility. They can't see the relationships between the systems. They can't understand the cascading impacts. They can't confidently answer questions like, what should we fix first? Where should we invest? And how do we justify these expenses to our stakeholders and or taxpayers? So as we deal with multiple sources of truth, we invariably get multiple sources of gaps. So when we look at infrastructure management, utilities know that pipes exist, right? They know that they're there, but they lack real-time condition monitoring, leak detection integration, or predictive failure modeling that is tied to the spatial location. Indoor mapping, buildings, courthouses, hospitals, schools, offices, all have a similar problem. They have no digital indoor maps for emergency evacuation, ADA compliance routing, or asset location within facilities. In municipal asset management, assets are tracked in isolation. A streetlight is a database record and not a visual element that is connected to its electric circuit, its maintenance crew territory, or its surrounding infrastructure. It has no context. It's simply just a line in a database. For capital planning, investment decisions typically rely on anecdotal evidence, political pressure, or even squeaky wheel complaints that rather than data-driven analysis of asset condition or risk or community impact are what is driving these decisions. Cross-departmental silos. Different departments each maintain separate systems with no shared framework for collaboration. Field operations inefficiency compounds when technicians waste time searching for assets. They lack mobile access to asset history, work order history, and they can't update the status in real time from the field. I've just fixed this asset. Then we look at citizen engagement, stakeholder engagement, governments, private companies. They can't provide visualization of infrastructure projects or service disruptions or capital plans in ways that build public trust and understanding. So what do we do? How do we solve for all of this? We look for a unified, spatially enabled operating system for assets and infrastructure. And GIS serves as the bedrock for that. It is the foundational platform that connects fragmented systems, visualizes complex relationships, and enables data-driven decision-making across every department and asset class. And it transforms operations from reactive crisis management to proactive, strategic stewardships of assets. I'm going to pause here and go ahead, Jennifer. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, Mike, like let that sink in for a second, right? Like this is the way that people see your city. If I'm a resident, I'm walking through, I don't see a street light that's out as a line in the database. I see it as a street light that actually helps light the pathway that gets you from one street to another. That's dangerous if it's not on. And that walkway is used by lots of children. And so when you have this opportunity to look at and contextualize all of your assets, you're able to understand the criticality and the domino effect that one asset failure can have on another. So is a streetlight just a streetlight that's out? Maybe. Is it a streetlight that's out that's providing light for something that's extremely important or potentially, could be potentially harmful? So I just, want to sort of applaud, I guess, and underscore the importance of GIS. When I had GIS group that worked for me at the city of Boston, there were like 2 or 3 people, and we were just discovering how important GIS was. Now, 20 years later, we actually sit where GIS is pretty much what everything else needs to be built on or integrated with or built into, so that you have all of what you need. And that's where GIS becomes absolutely, it's not negotiable anymore. It used to be that you could, and now you really can't. So everybody that's here on this call knows that. You're all GIS professionals. What I'm hoping that you take away from today is the understanding of how what you do that's so important, that is critical to your community, can also be shown by how it integrates with asset management and overall capital infrastructure plans. So I love this slide, Mike, and I love that statement. So just giving us a second to really absorb that.
To absorb it. Absolutely. And there are, people always have questions, can GIS actually do this? Can it serve as a bedrock? Can it unify disparate pieces of information into a single consumable format that adds context to data? And I point people when we have this conversation to Google Maps. Now, Google Maps is just a portal into a world of information. Go in there and click on a city name, and then look at the Wikipedia article come up on the side and drill into that, and you've got this wealth of information. So, maps and GIS can absolutely serve as that foundation, as that bedrock, as that glue, that adhesive that ties all of those disparate pieces of information together into actionable, contextual, meaningful data.
Amazing. Thank you.
So, what does it do for asset management, though? So, we've talked about how it can help, but how does it actually help? What is it bringing to the table, right? So, most importantly, when we're talking about GIS and geospatial data, is it provides a location, right? It gives spatial context to information. It provides the visualization necessary to understand complex systems in a unified spatial interface. We can have real-time monitoring integration. Think about that Internet of Things, all of those sensors and systems. Think about pressure monitors on water pipes that provide live status updates on flow rates, pressure anomalies, and leak detection, all mapped to precise locations. We can do predictive failure modeling. We can have digital twin capabilities integrated with our GIS that allow us to simulate pipe degradation, model failure scenarios based on age, material, soil conditions, etc. And we can prioritize the replacement programs before catastrophic failures occur. We can use it for emergency response optimization. So when that water main breaks, we get an instantaneous visualization of affected service areas right on the screen. We can identify those critical facilities, the hospitals, the schools that are at risk. We can route our crews effectively and efficiently, and we can communicate outage zones to the public. And all of this happens right on the map. Our regulatory compliance, right? So we have to track lead service line inventories. We need to map required replacement to EPA mandates, and we need to generate spatial reports that demonstrate that compliance progress. When we think about facility management and what goes on inside of the building, I mentioned digital twins. We can have digital building twins, again, integrated, that create interactive indoor maps for facilities, courthouses, city halls, hospitals, schools, transit stations, convention centers, you name it.
So,
For about
Mike,
yeah.
how realistic is it for cities and counties and public works departments to really get digital building twins? It sounds like a really, big investment of time and energy. But with Esri now being able to do some of this stuff, is it really? And I know we're going to dig into this more in the second webinar, but just as a little bit of a sort of teaser, so to speak, this is pretty possible now, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny. 20 years ago, I was pushing for indoor mapping, in my industry, and there just wasn't a market for it at the time. And then when I came on board at Brightly and we started talking about the application of GIS into asset management, it became very clear to me again that indoor mapping is incredibly important, especially as we move into this world of Internet of Things where everything is connected. Having the visibility into those connected systems is crucial to make the right decisions, and that's made possible by GIS.
Amazing.
Yeah, and the technology you asked about, how hard is it? How much of an investment is it? Of course, everything that's worth doing is an investment of time and
Of
resources.
course,
Uh,
of
but
course.
but we do have tools now. It's not as difficult as having to go in and manually create all of these tools and relationships that provide that integrated indoor mapping experience. There are tools to help you in that, where you can take digital PDFs of floor plans and import them in and create robust indoor maps from those floor plans. it's an exciting time for indoor mapping. I'm really, really excited to be on the forefront of it, and I'm really looking forward to the session on that.
Thank you.
So then let's look at municipal asset management, right? So life cycle visualization across all of the asset classes. Think streetlights, traffic signals, parks equipment, fleet vehicles, buildings, sidewalks, you name it. All of those asset classes. And we can visualize all of those in one spatial platform right on the map. We can do condition-based maintenance, right? So we can attach inspection data, photos, sensor readings, and degradation scores to those assets so that someone can actually query that asset and get all of that information. They can do that in the field. We can equip technicians with mobile applications showing asset locations, the maintenance histories, the parts inventories, and real-time work order updates. That reduces windshield time and increases fixed time. We can also enable departmental collaboration. And this goes back to those multiple sources of truth, various systems that treat data in different ways. Through a spatial context, we can consolidate all of those data points. Public works, parks, utilities, transportation all share a common spatial framework. We can use it to coordinate projects, avoid conflicts. Example, don't repave a street scheduled for a water main replacement, right? So, I mean, information just as simple as that. And we can share these resources. We can share this information efficiently because we all share a common hub, a common place where we all go to ingest this information. Let's look at it from a capital planning and a budget justification standpoint. And a sensitive topic to most people these days. Everyone's budget is shrinking. We can use data-driven investment prioritization here. We can overlay asset condition scores, failure risk models, service criticality, and community demographics to identify where capital dollars deliver maximum public benefit. I'm going to go back to the digital twin again, right? So simulate what if scenarios. What happens if we replace this bridge versus that water main? Model the traffic impacts, the service disruptions, and the long-term return on investment before committing funds to these projects. The visual budget communication is here, right? So we can present capital improvement plans to elected officials, stakeholders, citizens, using interactive maps showing project locations, the timelines, the cost, and the expected outcomes, which builds transparency and trust. By having such robust and auditable data, we strengthen our positions for grant applications. We can generate spatial analysis demonstrating the need, the equity impacts, and the community benefits required for federal and state infrastructure grants. We can defer maintenance tracking. We can visualize that spatial distribution of deferred maintenance backlogs and show our leaders exactly where underinvestment creates risk and justifies budget increases with evidence. Cross-departmental integration and automation. I work for Siemens Corporation, right? We are a huge company. We have tons and tons of departments, and we all need to speak to each other in a unified language to ensure we're all focused on the right stuff. So we can use GIS, we can use location intelligence as that unified data hub, and you've heard me say that a couple of times. We can connect those existing enterprise systems, CMMS, ERP, all of them into one spatial interface without replacing legacy environments, right? We create an integration where we bring that data into just a new environment and we don't have to replace that legacy environment. We can automate workflows, build those ETL pipelines that ingest data, that pull it in from multiple sources, validate the quality, and deliver updates across systems, eliminating that manual data entry and reconciliation that is so time consuming. We share a spatial framework here. We establish a common location standard, addresses, parcels, coordinate systems that all departments use, which ends the which map is correct confusion. Single source of truth. real-time operations data. We can create command center dashboards showing live status of water systems, traffic networks, emergency incidents, work crew locations, and citizen service requests on one map, one source of truth. Speaking of those citizen requests, how about engagement and transparency? And it's not just in government, this is for private business as well. We need that engagement. We need that transparency that drives our product roadmaps. It defines what we offer to the market. So, public facing infrastructure maps. We can publish interactive maps showing those capital projects, the service disruptions, park amenity, transit routes, evacuation plans, development plans, all of those things, which improve communication and reduce call volume into the city or the business.
Not to mention improved transparency, Mike, which is really such an important part of this is, being able to communicate effectively with your constituents about what's going on and being able to update things with real-time changes. And it makes a huge difference in people saying, hey, my government is doing this with my taxes. And I can see it actually coming to fruition before my eyes. And sometimes I think that's hard. The higher up you get in government, the less people see how what you do impacts them. So this is a really important piece, I think, of building that trust with your community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll point to an anecdote. Think about Amazon, right? Amazon can tell you where your package is at any point in time. You can say it left the shipping facility. Here, it just landed in Akron, Ohio. Sorry, there's some weather here that's delaying it, right? So if Amazon can give me that level of transparency and granularity on where my package is, why can't my city provide the same exact service to me when it comes to capital investments? When is my road going to get fixed? When is this derelict building being torn down? All of those things. So yeah, and it
Exactly.
does. It builds that public trust. It builds that transparency. And as you're creating the tools that enable your constituents, your stakeholders to consume this information, you're freeing up those resources that used to be on the phone, that used to be creating these reports, and now they're freed up to work on other things and move other priorities forward. Let's talk about closing the gaps. So the vision of GIS in asset management directly relates to each critical gap that I've covered here. So let's look at integrated systems. We'll look at water data and integrated intelligence. So we want to move from a static GIS layer in an isolated system to a dynamic digital network with that real-time integration. So the sensors are feeding that real-time data into spatial models. The continuous monitoring of those network conditions provide live status updates across the entire system. We have predictive analytics, which prevent failures, identify at-risk assets before they fail, proactive intervention based on data-driven insights, such as, for example, I have an air conditioner that is a certain brand and it always fails. Now I know I've got 25 more of those out in the field. Now I can attach this context to each one of those points out there, letting my technicians know that this is an at-risk machine. I have an inkling and I have data to back it up that these machines may fail. That drives reduced emergency repairs and service disruptions. Again, this is freeing up those resources who were so busy running around fighting fires, fixing water leaks, all of those things. Now, all of that is proactive, not reactive, and these resources can work on moving other priorities forward.
And we do know, Mike, that reactive maintenance is way more expensive than proactive maintenance. Not to mention unexpected service disruptions, which have a cost that can't be always foreseen, right? So I think reduced emergency repairs is not just your staff running around like chickens with their heads cut off, but also literally saving, the premium that's caused by having people have to react to an emergency. So big props to the communities that are doing this, that are actually modeling out and looking at where could things be happening, and how do I get in there early? And only by
Mhm.
understanding the context around what else is happening within that area can you really understand the criticality nature of the assets themselves.
Yep, for sure, for sure. I live in northern New England, and we have rough winters here, and a lot of our infrastructure is quite old, and we get water mains that break over and over and over again, like once a week, which is bad enough, right? But all of that water now rushing out of that system is causing damage to other infrastructure. It's washing out roads, it's ruining sidewalks, it's flooding into people's houses, right? So to your point, Jen, an emergency response to something is always going to be more expensive, more complex than getting out in front of it and treating it before it fails. And you reduce the risk to the surrounding area as well. Taking it back to capital planning. So risk-based capital planning, not just politics or squeaky wheel, as I mentioned at the beginning, right? This is data-driven, risk-based capital planning. Prioritize the replacements based on data. These are data-driven investment decisions, and they maximize the benefit and minimize the failure probability. And again, that saves time, money, resources, everything. We were talking about emergency response. And when everybody thinks emergency response, they're probably thinking a fire or a police emergency. But I'm going to take this back to a more relatable, practical emergency that we've probably all dealt with. A toilet is overflowing. Right. And so now we've got this big emergency. We've got to get someone down there to fix this toilet. And we want to make sure that we get someone who's close by. Right. We don't want to send someone who's 3 miles away to fix the toilet. It'll take them forever to get there. We want to make sure that we have someone close by. So using location intelligence, using GIS, we can get clear visibility of where our work crews are and where they should be deployed for faster and more effective incident management. When we look at spatial awareness indoors, building intelligence, that smart infrastructure that's going to drive those cities of tomorrow. We need to transform those static floor plans into dynamic digital building twins. That provides us with interactive real-time building modeling and live data integration with the building systems. Emergency responders, again, someone coming to fix that overflowing toilet, is able to navigate that unfamiliar facility confidently. They know exactly where to go, which stairway to take, and they know exactly where that toilet is in the building. There's no guesswork. They can be directed straight to the problem. The facility managers can locate assets instantly, which eliminates time-consuming searches. They can know exactly where every asset is located and not just a line on a database, not just this fire hydrant is located at the corner of these two streets. It is an actual representation of the actual location of the fire hydrant right on the map. There's no guesswork there. So you get immediate access to that asset information. Again, think about Google Maps. When you click on a restaurant, there's all of that information that comes out at you about the restaurant, about the types of food, the reviews that patrons have left, write-ups in local newspapers, whatever it is. You can apply all of that contextual information, all of that ancillary data right to that single point. And speaking of routing in indoor facilities, ADA compliance, right? This is a big deal. This is a big, big deal, especially as our population starts to age. We need to be able to document accessible routes and facilities. We need to maintain compliance records, and we need to be able to generate reports of maintenance histories and compliance efficiently and effectively to prove conformance and compliance to these very important regulations. And we're thinking about utilizing space, right? So all of this has, as I've mentioned, everything has a spatial component. So everything is using space in one way or another. And we can use GIS to optimize the space utilization through data and not through guesswork. We can use data-driven space planning decisions to drive our programs. We can identify underutilized areas that can be repurposed for new life, and we can maximize our facility efficiencies. And in that way, outdoor and indoor operations can be seamlessly integrated. You get a unified view across all of your facilities. You can have continuous navigation from outside to inside and holistic operational management.
Like, there is so much here. Like, I'm just absorbing all of this and I'm thinking to myself, wow, like there is a massive opportunity here. I'm super interested in what our audience is using GIS for now.
Yeah,
I wonder
for
if we
sure.
could pop up a quick poll that just ask people how it is that you are using GIS now. Because all of these things that Mike is talking about have real world implications to them, like, and have real situations in which GIS can be, integral and in fact foundational to how your city operates. So really fascinated with how are you using GIS today? What integrations do you see? Where are you being asked to provide information to operational departments? Or where are you trying to provide a vision or provide some possibilities for operational departments so that they can achieve their goals? And take some time to do this because this could you might want to think a minute. So I'm not going to pop up the answers right away. But what I would like to do is have Mike share with you some of the use cases that we've seen, that he's seen, and how all of these pieces kind of come together. It's important in my mind to sort of bring this into the real system, like the real world. How do we do this? How does this all work together? And so there are tons of gaps. There's tons of opportunity. There are systems out there that can help you. Can we delve into the use cases and see as we sort of people are entering in their thoughts around how they're using it, talk about some of the use cases that you see in using that?
Absolutely. First, let me just talk real quick about why all of this matters, right? So, the GIS helps to deliver actionable outcomes. It delivers outcomes that matter to our stakeholders, to our executives, elected officials, department heads, and your average Joe, just the guy on the street. He's going to get value out of this too. I want to talk real quick about areas of focus where GIS can really be applied for maximum value. Infrastructure resilience. We can model flood risks, heat island effects, infrastructure vulnerabilities, and plan adaptations strategically. We can use this for enhanced public safety and community trust, as we've talked about. That fiscal responsibility, those data-driven investment decisions that are so important to all businesses and governments. Workforce efficiency. This is going to empower our workforce with tools that capture knowledge and onboard new resources faster with intuitive spatial interfaces. And again, we'll go back to that regulatory compliance and grant competitiveness. All of that's going to come from using and optimizing our systems through GIS. So, key outcomes that we're looking for: faster emergency response. We can justify budgets with data. We can audit our spatial records and defend our decisions. We can empower and optimize our workforces. We can demonstrate that transparency, equity, and responsiveness. And looking towards the future, we can model risks and plan strategically, leveraging the digital twin. We can win funding. We can create compelling visual presentations for stakeholders and give that data-driven grant applications with spatial proof that it is required. But as Jen mentioned, let's look at some use cases. How is this working in the real world?
So, Mike, I just quickly got a chance to look at the chat and or the Q&A as people are putting in comments. And, I just love, keep doing this. This is amazing. I want to call out one very specific use case before you get started that's from the community that's listening. And you can read this in the chat, in the Q&A section for everybody that's watching yourself. But there's GIS integrating with LiDAR data that one community used to calculate the amount of beach sand that was eroded from Hurricane Sandy. Superstorm Sandy, as I recall, actually. And they did before and after runs of LiDAR and then did calculations about what that looked like. That's such a great use case of GIS and other information coming together to solve a real big community problem. Beach erosion in lots of coastal states is tough, and especially when you have something as strong as Superstorm Sandy, Hurricane Sandy was, that's a great example. So thank you for that example, Raymond, and keep it coming, because that's, it's exactly what, we're here to do, is to sort of start the thought process about how do we bring this all together in order to manage that asset, which in his case was the beach, and manage it for the communities to continue to provide that service of beach access to the community. So I'm excited to
Yeah.
get into these cases. Thank you.
Yeah, and one little nugget of information in what you just said there, Jen, and you touched on it briefly, but that beach was an asset, right? And
Hmm.
so that really just goes and highlights for our audience, what we can consider an asset. And I used a quip where I say everything from a paper clip to a nuclear reactor can be an asset, right? And all of those things have spatial components to them. All of them, the paper clip, the nuclear reactor, and everything in between. They all take up space. They have a location. In some cases, they may move. Think about drones or ambulances and fire trucks, right? So it's very exciting to see all of the different applications, and in the example that you provided, leveraging that lidar technology, which is just absolutely fantastic, to determine the erosion on a beach is just an incredible use case, and I'm really glad that you called that out. I'm excited about that one.
I can't imagine the difficulty without that data that the community would have had in guessing how much sand they should put back, the wasted money purchasing excess sand, or the reverse, the, not spending of money and having that erosion really impact the usability of the beach and take an important asset away from the community. So that's exactly the kind of stuff we're talking about, and exactly how critical really GIS information is to, properly making good decisions about a community.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Let's walk through a few other different use cases here. So we've got the first one I want to cover is proximity-based scheduling. So field crews, think about a field crew. They receive work orders throughout the day, but the assignments of these work orders are often made based on the availability of that technician and not their location. So again, think about that overflowing toilet. We don't want to send someone who's available just who's 5 miles away to someone who may not be available right at the moment, who's only a few feet away. So we want to be able to rather than based on a availability assignment. This is based on a location, and it's resulting in efficient routing. It's eliminating wasted fuel, and it's improving response times. So think about a public works department who's implemented proximity-based scheduling, and they've reported measurable reductions in average response time and fuel cost, and with some organizations achieving improvements in both areas that translate to significant annual savings and increased daily work order capacity. How about utility network management? When a water main breaks, crews need to quickly identify which valves to shut off to isolate the problem. And without the spatial awareness, this requires manually tracing paper maps or calling our friend who retired last year because he knows the system. Municipalities implementing GIS-based network tracing have reported substantial reductions in average repair time, service disruptions, and public safety impacts during emergency responses. I mentioned optimized routing for that field technician. Field technicians often work in unfamiliar parts of a service area, and they rely on a personal GPS device or, even worse, printed directions that don't account for real-time traffic, road closures, or efficient multi-stop sequencing. What if he has multiple things he needs to do? Utilities who are implementing optimized routing have reported notable reductions in daily drive time per technician, right? So less windshield time and more wrench time. That allows crews to complete additional work orders during the day, and it improves service responsiveness for time-sensitive tasks. Think about that toilet. Mobile field data editing. This is huge. This is huge, right? So field crews collect data on paper forms or in disconnected mobile applications, or data entry happens back at the office, maybe days later, leading to errors, duplication, and delays in updating the asset records. Departments that implement mobile GIS for asset management have reported dramatic reductions in data entry time and substantial improvements in inventory accuracy, with some organizations achieving rates exceeding 95%. Many municipalities lack complete and accurate inventories of their assets. So this comprehensive field data collection enables us to get that information into our systems. Legacy records are incomplete, paper-based, or stored in disconnected systems. Conducting a comprehensive inventory using traditional methods is time-consuming and expensive. Cities conducting asset inventories using mobile GIS have completed comprehensive collections, thousands of assets in timeframes representing fractions of traditional estimates, in some cases reducing the project duration from months to weeks. Preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance is also often scheduled on fixed intervals without actually considering the asset condition, its usage patterns, or the spatial clustering of similar assets. That leads to both over-maintenance and unexpected failures. Transportation and utility departments who've implemented GIS-based predictive maintenance have reported significant reductions in unplanned asset failures and emergency callouts, which improves the public safety and the service reliability while reducing overall cost. So some of the key outcomes that we talked about in those use cases: improved response times, so real-time asset location and routing optimization. Mobile access to critical data eliminates trips to the office. Instant dispatching with complete work context reduces time from call to arrival and job completion. When we talk about repair time, a complete asset history is available on site, right from the text device. There's no searching manuals for specifications or repair instructions. Pre-staged parts are based on asset data, meaning that we can run analysis on our assets and determine which ones are coming up on end of life or are coming up for those preventative maintenance cycles, and we can get those parts ordered and have them in inventory ready to go. We increase it. Oh, go ahead.
I keep listening to you and thinking about all of the use cases that you went through and many, many more. I wanted to just take a second, if we could, and look at the results of the earlier poll, where we were asking people what they were doing. How are you using GIS today? Are you able to pop that answers up?
Let me just take a moment, a second, see if I can share it. Hold on.
Okay, we can keep going, Mike. I just thought this was a great opportunity to sort of bring it back to what people are seeing in every day. And as we wrap up here, because we only have 5 minutes left, and I did want to continue to sort of monitor the chat and the Q&A to see if there's any other additional questions, but wanted to just kind of bring this back home and talk about, what's the end here? Like, where are you really seeing the result? Where are you really seeing the impact now in all of the customers and experience that you have? Um, that's really cool. So people are using it for utilities, people are using it in the field, people are using it for traffic, analysis, networking, parks. So all of basically the things that we've been talking about, which is great, makes me feel like we're right on target, right?
Yeah.
With what we're talking about. So in the last couple minutes that you have, Mike, can you just bring forward the sort of final, where you finally rest at the end? And I'm hoping that this helps for our listeners and viewers, something they can take back and be actionable in their own community with this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the result. So GIS becomes the indispensable foundation for modern asset management. It connects disparate systems, it connects buildings, it connects transportation, parks, public safety, all into one intelligent and automated, transparent platform. It's going to transform how we manage our infrastructure, how we allocate resources, how we engage our stakeholders, and how we plan for the future. And this isn't just better mapping, right? We all know that. This is a fundamental shift from fragmented reactive operations to integrated, predictive, data-driven governance. Organizations who are using GIS and location intelligence don't just manage assets. They optimize systems, they mitigate risk, they justify investment, and they build trust through transparency and performance. And it's not the platform that makes all of this real. It's not the technology. It's not a distant vision, right? This is an operational reality that we can deliver today. We can see return on investment today while positioning our organizations for the autonomous, connected, and resilient infrastructure of tomorrow.
That's just awesome, Mike. I love that sort of mission statement of what it is we're trying to do. And I think one of the questions in the Q&A is kind of gets to one of what I feel like is a niggling question, right? Which is, we're all moving towards this idea of digital twins or digital simulation of things that are happening. Is progress is perfection the enemy of progress, whatever that saying is, right? Like, should you build, sort of move forward to build the perfect 3D model, or creating trusted GIS based asset data as the foundation? So in other words, it's not just a pretty picture, it's not just a visualization project, but it's an operational tool for maintenance, for capital planning, all of that. And Mark asked this question, I'm paraphrasing for him. But I think it's an excellent point, which is it isn't a toy. It's an important potential operational tool. And so, just I know we're going to go over a little bit, and I apologize to anybody that needs to drop, but the idea that what we're doing isn't just visualizations. It's actually important activity that helps our operational partners work more efficiently, work better, get better results.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've tossed around that term, the concept of that digital twin. And one thing as I'm socializing this both internally and externally, is I go back to the fact that the map itself is a digital twin. The map itself is a digital twin of the world that we live in. And so from the very beginning, from those first paper maps, we've been obsessed with creating these twins, these models of our world and what's in them. And we can now leverage those tools, those models, to create new and exciting opportunities for our organizations where we can improve efficiency, we can improve production, we can improve all areas by leveraging this cohesive glue that we can use to tie all of these disparate data together.
So the last question on here is one that I think is a great way to end. And I want to thank everybody, for coming today and for participating. It's really, I've really enjoyed this. And I hope you're able to come to the future ones. We have 3 more scheduled. One, we're going to dig into indoor mapping. One, we're going to dig into outdoor mapping. And then we're having a final one that's a bit more of a vision going forward. But how do you get started, Mike? Like, how do you get started, and how do you get your municipality started in this process, and using all of the different tools that are available to bring together this information that is sort of in our ideal space? And I think we'll end with that. And thank you so much, all of you, for participating. And Mike, thank you. You have such a busy day, and thank you for taking the time to come and sort of teach us a little bit more about how you view GIS.
Of course, it's been my pleasure. And again, thank you to everyone who joined. You have made me my personal best audience record today, and I appreciate that. But how do we get started? That's a great question. And I'll be perfectly honest. It depends. Right, it would depend. My suggestion on how we get started here is that we really latch on to the data and we really point to the fact that we're using that data to drive decision making. And you can start small. You can start small with I'm just trying to think of a good asset. Trash cans in your parks, right? This is an asset, and you can use data to say, hey, we've got 4 trash cans in our park, and we've got trash on the ground. Perhaps we need to look at where the trash is falling on the ground, where we have our trash cans, and can we make impactful change by either moving the trash cans around or by adding more? And so it's that type of data-driven decision making that I would encourage you to bring to your stakeholders and say, look at what we've done using the power of geospatial data. We've made this, we've determined that this data is accurate and this is the appropriate decision to carry forward. And the more that organizations see the value that these decisions bring, these data-driven decisions, they're going to come back and ask for more of them. They're going to want more and more. They're going to want analytics. They're going to want reports. They're going to want printed maps. They're going to want all of this stuff because it really, really helps to convey information and data in a way that is consumable to normal folks.
Awesome. What a great way to end. You guys, thank you again so much. Hopefully, we'll see you at the next one. And thanks for participating.
Thank you all.